Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Jesse with Survival Summit. I'm glad you guys are here because what we're about to cover today could be the difference between life and death. Not just for you, but the people you care about. We're talking about the first 10 seconds of a crisis. Whether that's a violent attack, a carjacking, a home invasion, a riot, or a sudden disaster. Most people spend their lives convinced bad things only happen to other people, or that if something does happen, they'll somehow snap into action like a hero in a movie. But that, unfortunately, is a lie. The truth is that the first 10 seconds of an emergency are the most important moments you'll ever face, and you'll only survive if you've prepared yourself to act without hesitation. Why do I emphasize those first 10 seconds so much? Because the first seconds of chaos are when your brain and your body do the worst things possible by default. Your pulse spikes, your breathing goes shallow, your mind starts to race. And if you haven't trained yourself to act, you most likely are going to freeze. That freeze, even for 3 or 4 seconds, can mean the difference between escaping and dying. Today, we're going to unpack how your brain works under stress, why you freeze, and how you can train yourself and your family to move instantly when every second matters. We're going to talk about real stories, case studies, examples from disasters, violent crimes, and even survival situations. I'll walk you through step by step how to break through hesitation, what drills to practice, what gear to keep ready, and how to teach this mindset to your kids so they don't become easy victims. But before we dive deep, I want you to think about the last time you were startled. Maybe it was a car backfiring. Maybe it was just a dog barking in the middle of the night. Remember how your body felt in that split second. Your chest, did it get tight? Your breath caught? Maybe your muscles tensed up a little bit. That's just a small taste of what your body does when it senses danger. Now imagine that same rush, but instead of a false alarm, it's an actual threat. What you do in that moment will decide everything, and it is super critical. So let's talk about what happens in your brain during those first few seconds. Your amygdala, the fear center, is going to take over. It's going to flood your body with adrenaline, which is supposed to help you run or fight, but it can also overload you and cause you to freeze. Meanwhile, your frontal cortex, the logical decision-making part of your brain, is trying desperately to process what's happening. This conflict causes a bottleneck. That's why people who've never prepared sometimes stand motionless in the face of danger. You always wonder, why do people freeze when something crazy happens? That's why. So I want you to remember this phrase. You won't rise to the occasion. You'll fall to your level of training. Any good instructor has probably said that in any class that you've ever gone to, especially, tactical or fighting, whatever it may be. You've probably heard that before. Now that's not just a cliche, it's the truth, and it's proven by countless incidents. Let's dig deep into a real-world example. Let's take the Sutherland Springs church shooting in Texas. A neighbor heard the gunfire. He immediately grabbed his rifle and ran towards the sound. That instant decision in those first 10 seconds stopped the killer from continuing a massacre. But in other tragedies, like the Pulse nightclub shooting, many froze or assumed the noise was fireworks. In those seconds of inaction, they cost lives. Consider the 9/11 attacks. On United Flight 93, passengers who recognized what was happening decided to quickly act. They fought back and likely saved countless lives on the ground. But think about the millions who watch planes strike buildings on TV. Some people in the second tower hesitated to evacuate because they assumed it was an accident. Those who left immediately, most of them lived. Those who waited, they didn't. Let's pause here for a second. I want you to ask yourself right now, wherever you're listening, do you have a plan for the first 10 seconds if something goes wrong? Not a vague idea, but a specific action. If someone breaks into your house at night, what will you do? What exactly is your plan? If you hear shots while you're shopping, how will you react? If you see a car swerve into your lane, what's your instinct? You don't have to answer me out loud, but I want you to really reflect on this. So let's talk about why people freeze even when they know what's happening. It's called normalcy bias, the tendency to believe everything is fine even when it's not. This is why passengers in train crashes sometimes sit frozen in their seats instead of evacuating. It's why people in burning buildings have been found trying to finish phone calls or gather belongings. You've all heard the fire drills. Most people take their time. They figure the smoke alarm just went off or the fire alarm went off. They don't ever think it's something actually happening. But what about the times when it is? So in those times, your brain wants everything to stay normal, so it resists accepting that you could possibly be in danger. To break through normalcy bias, you must train your mind to recognize cues of danger and immediately execute a simple plan. That's why pilots and soldiers use checklists and drills. They don't rely on thinking under pressure. They follow what they've rehearsed. Now, I want to share several stories. You may know, you may not know. Each of them proves how those first seconds decide everything. During the 2004 tsunami in Thailand, a young girl recognized the rapid receding of the ocean from a school science lesson. She screamed for everyone to run, and dozens of people survived. Others who stood watching were swept away. Now, in 2011's Joplin, Missouri tornado, people who heard sirens and took shelter instantly lived. Those who tried to look outside or finish tasks often didn't make it. Home invasions. In home invasions, criminals report that victims who freeze or comply blindly are far easier to control. But those who instantly resist, escape, or call for help disrupt the attack and often survive. So how can you train yourself? Start by creating decision triggers. These are predetermined cues that launch your plan. For example, the sound of breaking glass after dark. That should trigger your move to grab whatever defensive weapon you might have, secure your family, and call for help. Seeing someone approach your car aggressively triggers your plan to drive off or escape. Hearing gunfire triggers you to get low, find cover, and move. You should also rehearse these scenarios until they're automatic. Visualization is key. Imagine yourself in detail, experiencing the event, and practice breathing deeply to control adrenaline. Then, physically walk through the actions with your family. Let's talk about active shooters. What should you do if you're unarmed in a public place? Your first 10 seconds should focus on getting off the X. That means moving laterally from the shooter's position, staying low, and finding cover. Don't waste time trying to identify the shooter. Every second counts. What about home invasions? When you hear forced entry, you only have seconds, sometimes a little longer, to secure your loved ones. Don't wander around the house yelling, "Who's there?" Your plan should be immediate. Grab your weapon or defensive tool, gather your family into your safe room, lock the door, and call 911. If you're in your vehicle during an attempted carjacking, your plan should include leaving enough space from the car in front of you to maneuver out of traffic, especially when you're in the cities. Always keep your doors locked, and the moment you see someone approaching with malicious intent, drive away. Don't hesitate to go over a curb if it means escaping. You need to start recognizing when someone has bad intent or if someone is moving towards your vehicle or towards you, and it seems like a tense, dangerous situation. Trust your gut. Yes, you drive over a curb, maybe when you didn't need to, maybe someone was just running and trying to weave through traffic and get over to the sidewalk when you were just coming out of a red light. Now what happens if you do that? You're at a red light, someone comes barrel ass right towards your vehicle. They look like they might have malicious intent. You get out of there, you drive over the curb, and you get out of the way. And it turns out the person was just trying to get across the street before the light turned green. No harm, no foul, assuming you didn't run anybody over. During civil unrest or riots, the cues are obvious. Crowds are forming, shouting is becoming louder and louder, objects start being thrown, police lines are shifting. Your first 10 seconds should be spent moving calmly but decisively away from the crowd, keeping to side streets and avoiding bottlenecks like bridges or narrow alleys. What about natural disasters? Remember this. Seconds matter. Earthquakes, they require you to drop, cover, and hold on. Tornadoes demand you to immediately seek interior shelter. Flash floods means you need to move to higher ground without hesitation. Let's spend some time on a scenario people often overlook. Being out in public when violence erupts. A shooting in a mall, a brawl turned into a riot, or even a vehicle attack in a crowd. In these situations, your first 10 seconds should focus on moving diagonally away from the source of danger, getting off the X. Standing still or moving straight back is what everyone else does, and that gets you trampled or trapped. We've talked about this before in other podcasts. Identify exits the moment you enter a public place. Make it a habit. Where are the doors? Where are the side corridors? What cover should you use if shots are fired? And don't think about the movies where they're flipping over tables, things that bullets are easily going to go through. You need to find solid cover. We're not talking about concealment, we're talking about actual cover. Now, by mentally rehearsing these details every time you go out, you reduce the time it takes for your brain to process danger. That's how you make instant decisions. Now let's slow it down for a second. I want you to picture yourself walking into the local grocery store. Where's the nearest exit besides the front door? If a vehicle crashed through the entrance right now, where would you take cover? This isn't paranoia, it's a mindset of readiness. The people who think through these scenarios ahead of time act faster when the unthinkable happens. Another overlooked setting is hotels. Traveling for work or vacation often makes people drop their guard. Always check your floor's emergency exits, locate the fire extinguishers, and identify alternative stairwells. If a fire or an attack or an earthquake occurs, knowing where to go in the first 10 seconds will keep you ahead of the crowds that are panicking, and maybe even keep you from getting trampled or getting stuck in the building, not getting out as fast as you could. When you're staying in unfamiliar cities, please don't just trust your GPS. Before you leave the hotel or Airbnb, wherever you're staying, study the route. Study the major landmarks, potential choke points like bridges or tunnels. That way, if your phone dies or a threat emerges, you have a mental map to be able to navigate if you're not able to use your phone. All right, let's shift gears for a minute. I want to address parents specifically. Training your kids for their first 10 seconds is one of the greatest gifts you can give them. Don't scare them, but teach them that if something bad happens, like an adult trying to grab them or a loud bang, they should run to safety, scream for help, or follow a specific plan that you've practiced together. We talk about running fire drills in your home all the time. You should be doing all kinds of drills, especially when you're out in public, especially if you're in a major city. Maybe you're not from there. Even if you are from there, you should have a plan. Never take your eyes off your children. Practice short drills with them. Make it a game. What do you do if we get separated in a store? Or what's the first thing you do if someone tries to grab you at the park? Role-playing will help them lock in these responses into their brain. Now let's go deeper into the psychology of why some people survive and some others don't, even when they have similar backgrounds or similar training. The survivors almost always had two things: a plan and a commitment to act without hesitation. Having a plan doesn't mean having every step mapped out. It means having that first move ready, where you'll go, what you'll grab, and what you'll say to your family. A commitment to act means deciding in advance that if you sense danger, you'll execute your plan immediately, even if you're scared. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting in spite of fear. Now, what about gear? Gear's not magic. It's a tool to enable action, or tools to enable action. What if your gear isn't staged for fast access? It might as well not even exist if that's the case. How many people have a flashlight, but it's buried in the junk drawer? Or a firearm they've never trained with, locked in a safe they can't even open quickly? Your first 10 seconds gear checklist should include little things like a bright, reliable flashlight near your bed. Your defensive tool of choice, and clearly the training to use it under stress. That's very important. You should have a phone charged and in reach, not left across the house. Car keys staged by your bed so you can leave fast if you have to. To go back to staging some of your gear, we did some classes with Dr. Mike Simpson, who was a Green Beret for 30 years. He's also a medical doctor. This guy is amazing. He teaches a great TCCC course. I don't know if he teaches them anymore. TCCC is Tactical Combat Casualty Care. You can also take TECC, which is kind of a civilian version of that. But he teaches things like, hey, have your Israeli pressure dressing not all wrapped up in its first or second layer bandage. Have your tourniquet, take the plastic off. Make sure it's ready to go. So that way, if something happens, you can easily get to this equipment and not have to worry about taking the plastic off, taking all the wrappers. Some of those pressure dressings, you'll have to take the outside package off, and then there's an inside package to help keep it sterile. You got to remember this type of thing. It's very, very important to make sure that your gear is staged and staged in the right way. All right, let's talk about skills. What good's a first aid kit if you don't even know how to use it? Take a Stop the Bleed course. Some of them I think you can still get for free. This way you can control bleeding in the first seconds after an injury. Learn to recognize the sounds of gunshot versus fireworks, especially around the 4th of July. Practice reading body language so that you'll notice when someone's approaching when they might have bad intentions before they get into your space. And part of that, hey, Situational Awareness. We put out a book. This was co-written with myself and Scooter Brown from the Scooter Brown Band. And we also had a lot of help and a lot of research done by a good friend of ours, a Navy veteran, Jake McCluskey. You can get it on Amazon. You You can also get it on our website, thesurvivalsummit.com. All right, let's dive into some specific examples that illustrate these points. Remember the Westgate Mall attack in Nairobi, Kenya? Terrorists stormed the mall with rifles and grenades. Some shoppers dropped instantly and crawled away, surviving because they acted in the first few seconds. Some others, they stood frozen, some pulling out phones to film. Can you imagine? There's an attack of that nature happening, and some people are pulling out their phones to film, and they're getting killed doing that. Please put your damn phone down, unless you're calling 911, and only do that from cover. Please don't try to film it. You're not going to become some YouTube superstar because you filmed some crazy event. You're probably going to end up 6 feet in the ground. What about natural disasters like 2011 tsunami in Japan? Some coastal towns evacuated immediately when they felt the earthquake. Others waited for official warnings. Those who moved without waiting survived. Most of them. Those who hesitated, more of them were overtaken by the waves than anybody else. Let's not forget stories closer to home either. During Hurricane Katrina, some families waited days for evacuation buses because they trusted officials to save them. Those who left early on their own and avoided chaos at the Superdome and the desperation that followed, they were lucky. But they weren't just lucky, they were smart. They decided, you know what, we have to get out of here, and we have to get out of here now. Don't ever wait for the government to come save you, because they might not show up. They might not be able to show up. You know, these stories drive home one truth. Every second matters. Now, I want to give you practical steps you can take to train yourself, your family, and your team, which hopefully you have a team. If you don't have a team, start creating one now, even if it's family and friends. You want to try to get a group and do a lot of training together so you can all get better. All right, first we're going to visualize the worst case scenarios. Don't just think about them vaguely. Close your eyes and walk through the sights, the sounds, and even the smells. What will you hear? What will you see? What will you do first? Visualization prepares your brain for stress. Second, practice your first moves physically. It's one thing to think about grabbing your weapon or your go bag. It's another to do it from a dead sleep. Run drills from your bedroom to your family's safe room. Time yourself. Then add layers in. Do it in the dark. Do it with noise playing. Do it when you're tired. Try to do it under stress. Even simulated stress will help it be easier when something may happen. So that's stress inoculation. When you practice, you're creating conditions that raise your heart rate. So do jumping jacks, do burpees, sprint around your house a couple times before running a drill. This is going to simulate the adrenaline that you'll feel in a real crisis and teaches you how to perform under pressure. Because think about it. You could do all this nice and slow. Hey, let me grab a coffee. Let me do this. Let me do that. That's not going to be a real situation. You're not going to wake up in the middle of the night to glass breaking or the smell of smoke and, hey, let me go make a coffee. You're going to be immediately in fight or flight mode, figuring out where your family is, exactly what's happening. So always try to train under stress. Now, a note on that. If you're new to, say, firearms, don't just go to the range and start running around like a madman. Make sure you know what you're doing first. Make sure you have at least basic firearms training before you start training with stress inoculation, because you don't want to have an accidental discharge or something crazy that happens because you were just being a maniac at the range when you really didn't even have the basic skills down first. So try to get professional training. I highly recommend that. All right. What about including your family in the planning? You have to assign roles. Who's going to grab the kids? Who's going to call 911? Who's gathering the go bags? You got to rehearse these roles until everyone can execute them without prompting. This is why training is critical. You also have to refresh your plan regularly. Don't assume your 5-year-old is going to remember what you practiced a year ago. Schedule quarterly family safety nights where you review and rehearse. What about training your mind to commit? That means deciding today, right now, that you won't hesitate if you sense danger. Commit to moving instantly, to prioritizing life over possessions, and trusting your instincts, because most of the time, your instincts are always going to be right. After today's podcast, I want you guys to leave with one main thought. You have a choice. You can believe bad things only happen to others and hope you'll be lucky. Or you can accept that danger doesn't make appointments, and you can prepare to act in the moments that matter the most. Make the choice now so you don't pay the price later. I really appreciate you guys checking out this episode today. It's not going to be long. The last one was about this short. This is probably going to end up being 20 to 25 minutes. Hope you found the episode valuable, and I hope you share it with someone that you love. Because the more people who learn to take action in the first 10 seconds, the safer we all become. Subscribe now, depending on which channel you're on. Make sure you guys never miss an episode. We also cut these podcasts into video clips that go on pretty much all of our social media channels. And visit thesurvivalsummit.com for books, gear, and training that'll give you the tools to survive whatever comes your way. Make sure you guys check out our new books as well. The newest book we have, Safe Church, Strong Church. This is a book for the faithful. You don't have to just be a Christian, but most of the things in this book are based on the Bible. So we wrote this specifically for Christians, but this book is basically situational awareness for churches and church organizations. And that came right after our Situational Awareness book, which is for everyone. And this is a very thick book with a ton of information. There's a lot of research that went into this book, and I think it has 5 stars right now on Amazon. It's amazing. And then before that, we came out with the 9 Pillars of Preparedness. This book is going to go over a lot of really good information for all things preparedness. Shelter, fire, water, food, communications, land nav, signaling, personal protection. You name it, it's in here. And then the first one we put out, not including the one we made with E.J. Snyder, Emergency Home Preparedness, this is PACE planning, primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. This is basically a framework. It's not as big of a book. It doesn't come, with a lot of instruction as far as learning certain things, but this is basically your framework to learn PACE planning in all aspects of preparedness. Because if you don't have a PACE plan, you really don't have much of a plan at all. You have to have a backup to the backup to the backup, because when things can go wrong, they will go wrong. I appreciate you guys listening to the podcast. Make sure you share this episode. Share all of our other episodes. We have a lot of other podcasts that are out on Spotify. You can also watch them on YouTube. Check them out. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook and X, TikTok, Instagram, Clapper. We're pretty much everywhere. Spotify. We're on Spotify for all of these podcasts. We love Spotify. Spotify has been a great platform. Until the next time, stay safe, stay sharp, and keep training.